Okay, good.
Okay.
Today is May 31st, 2022, our live from France Square, the last one for the month of May. Go ahead, Hovik.
Hey, everyone. We are back at our studios in Santa Fe Cafe at the Freedom Square. And tonight we're going to have a very exciting lineup of guests, as well as some interesting discussions to be had. This is, I guess, more than a month of protest. Protests every single day, almost. And today's day was, during the day there was also a pretty large turnout. I think that basically the protesters marched throughout the city, and it was fun to see the police with their tourist buses rushing around the city trying to guess where the protesters were going to go next. I think basically today was like a very elaborate game of trolling the police. First, we approached the foreign ministry, and there was a very sort of I think that since Pashinyan was at the parliament today, the parliament was very fortified, and I think that many thought that the action was going to be at the parliament, but then the crowd decided to go to the foreign ministry, and there again they demanded to speak to the deputy foreign ministers and the foreign minister to get their confirmation that they support the 7 points put out by the opposition, among them that Artsakh will never be part of Azerbaijan, that relations with Turkey will not be at the expense of the right for reparations and for the historical truth of the genocide, and many other points which support those. Essentially, we can say a reaffirmation of the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, which is a preamble to the Armenian constitution. So from the foreign ministry, none of the deputy ministers wanted to talk to the protesters, and the goal was not to enter the building. The goal was not to surround the building, but given that then sort of while the police were busy getting over to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the crowd decided to march on, and we continued on Khanjan Street, passing and actually to Alek Manukyan Street, passing by the radio house, which brought to me memories of how Nikol Pashinyan entered the radio house in 2018 famously, or actually sort of broke into the radio house, which is a state sort of building, and it should be defended fully, but met no resistance, and that was, many would consider, a watershed moment in the 2018 coup, when basically people got the sense that he has authority in the streets, as much as Serge Sarkisian had authority on Baghraman 26. But the goal of the protest was not to enter the radio's house illegally, as Pashinyan did. We continued on to Yerevan State University, and there we stopped and did, some of the parliamentarians, the opposition parliamentarians, entered YSU to demand to speak to the rector of the university to get his stance on the 7 points put forth by the opposition. The rector locked himself in his cabinet and told his secretary that he's not in the office, and it was a pretty embarrassing episode. But that just shows the level of complacency and the level of subservience that supposedly apolitical institutions have. And one of the chief claims of the Pashinyan regime was that, with regard to education, was that education was going to be made free of politics, whereas completely the opposite has happened. In fact, we talked with, a few weeks ago, we talked with Meno Solomonyan from the 5165 party, and he is known the Ger, or his cause basically is education. He's in the education management sphere, and he's also a professor. So soon, hopefully, once all these things die down a little bit, and hopefully, once we have a little bit more time, we've been meaning to have a podcast with him about what the Pashinyan regime has done to the education sector in Armenia. It's completely made up of Pashinyan lackeys, and we saw that at full display at YSU.
Hovi, can I quickly mention, I was watching live the part where the parliamentarians were looking for the rector, and if you guys did not see that live, it is obviously recorded, and you can go to the recording on the various pages, and it's kind of hilarious, actually.
Wait, what is?
When they went to it was broadcast live when they went to the office of the rector, and they say, well, his office, but the secretary said he's not here, and then they and supposedly he also, like, with his own voice or something, said that he's not there, so I don't know, but anyway, and then the protesters continued to Yerevan State University of Economics, I believe that's what it's called, or Economic State University. Anyway, so the Economics University, and there the director was also not there, and there's suspicion why he was not there, and maybe he learned about the protest and was able to skedaddle out of there, but the vice director, or the chief of staff, or his assistant, was there and was very supportive of the protesters. So that was some good news. But I think overall, the opposition so far, I think, is trying to lay bare, how state institutions work, especially in Pashinyan's times. So, we went back to France Square, and we demobilized for the day until 7 p.m. when the protesters gathered again, and there was a rally and a march and a concluding rally. Tomorrow is going to be a day, they said, of meetings, and since tomorrow is Day of Children, there's going to be like a special event here at 5 o'clock for children. But I don't think there's going to be any major rally or protest events tomorrow. But apparently the protest leaders and the opposition MPs are going to be having political consultations. And I think the big day is being sold as June 3rd, Thursday. So I think tomorrow we'll hang tight. I don't know if we'll have a live tomorrow, unless maybe there's something very special. But otherwise, just FYI, Asped, I think we shouldn't schedule one for tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah. Should we start with our first guest, or are there any questions about what happened today that I can help, or any comments?
Hovik, tell us what was the general mood of the protests? Because watching it, it seemed like there were a lot of people, and the air was buzzing with energy.
I think that this is basically these people, in my opinion, will not relent and will not go home until their demands are met, which is the resignation of dictator Pashinyan. And
it's been a month now.
Definitely the how do you say martakan? The mood was very sort of militant, and there were actually, I think there were more people today than there were yesterday, when there was a lot of police brutality. The problem was today there was a lot of sun, so when people were watching it on the live streams, you could see only a small contingent at the front, in front of the cameras, whereas a lot of people were hiding out in the shades under the trees. The optics were not the best for judging turnout, but
Yeah, the optics were
definitely,
showing mostly the people who were pressed against the police that were protecting the building entrances and stuff.
yeah,
Hmm. And those guys they had Vahan Inchbiskin, they had big shields
shield,
this
the
time.
shield.
Yeah, yeah. It's rather intimidating against a bunch of people who are neither armed, wearing T-shirts and jeans, and that's it. You know.
Well, as they say, the big, I think they're compensating a lot with those shields, but I don't know. It's it's all meant to intimidate, but there's a point when you have enough people, then it won't matter.
There's one concern that I have. It seems like there is a pent up energy right now around June 3rd. The parliamentary date. Um, and people like Ishkhan Saatelyan have been saying that this is a decisive date. Frankly, we've seen decisive dates come and go. And now I won't say anything negative like then nothing happens, because something does happen. The protests continue and stuff. But I have a concern that this date will come. The civil contract people may not even show up in parliament, so nothing may happen. So on June 4th, it'll be the same as June 3rd. What
How
is your
about
feeling about this date?
Yeah, let me actually give to Allison, and she can also introduce our next guest, and maybe he also has insight about this.
Yeah,
So
let's
he
start then.
knows more than me, but I just saw kind of a weird article that apparently the Pashinyan's police they're planning to clear France Square on June 3rd. So if that's their plan, even this idea is being floated. Maybe this is a trial balloon, but I think that's going to certainly fire people up to hold their ground. So anyway, on that note, let me introduce our next guest, Hratch Jabrayan, and he can perhaps tell you a little bit about himself. But he's going to be talking about the movement, about the day-to-day, what's going on, and the tactics used to try to stifle what can't be stifled.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Hratch.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the discussion today. As mentioned, my name is Hratch Jabrayan. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, but moved to Canada at a very young age. I've been pretty much living in Armenia for the last almost 12 years. I do travel a lot back and forth to Canada, but I'm situated here. My wife and children are here. My children attend school here. So, I am a repat. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do understand some Arabic, and I do speak it a little bit, but, Armenian and English work a little better for me, though I appreciate the shout out there. I've been very active in the movement, not only this time around, but also, a year ago when we kind of tried to do something similar. Some of you will have seen me on stage a few times. I do get the odd opportunity to say a few words on behalf of, Spirkahai or Repat. Listen, I kind of overheard the thing about, some potential key dates and so on and so forth. What I'd like to say is that every day is a key date in this battle to throw out the Treasonous government. What we've seen is we've set ourselves a goal, and we are working towards that goal. And as you all know, as in life, as in business life, same as in politics, anything big takes time and a lot of effort. And this thing is taking a lot of effort. I'm one of those people who has rarely seen his family the last 35, 36 days. Spend a lot of time away from home, not seeing the wife and the kids. But the bottom line is we have something set and we're working towards that. I firmly believe we're going to be able to achieve it. And we've hit some key milestones in the sense that we do have a foundation, a large group of people that believe in what we are doing. Previously some of these people were sitting on the fence. Maybe they weren't sure, but we've clarified for them the vision that we see, which is, Artsakh is never going to be part of Azerbaijan. It has to be Armenian within the Armenian framework. We are not prepared to cede more lands from Armenia proper. We are going to determine how powerful and how big our army is. And, it's not going to be Azerbaijan dictating that. So we're getting this message out. So the one thing I do want to say is that, we don't lose hope. We don't get tired. We might lose a little weight, and we might not be able to eat properly for a few days. But the bottom line is, I firmly believe we're headed where we need to be. Is it taking a little longer than what people might like? Yeah, absolutely. But listen, nobody gets an MBA in 30 days. They have to work for it at least a year, most of the time 4 years. So, this is like getting a PhD, not even an MBA. So we're working towards that. We'll get there. And, I want everybody to know that the support we receive from the diaspora, from Armenians who don't live here but love the homeland, or even people who live here but are not, participating daily, the core foundation that we've put together, including myself. We appreciate everything that's happening. I talk to Ishkhan every day. Every day we spend time together. I talk to some of the other leaders, Aram Bartevanyan, I talk to Levon Kocharyan, and some of these other guys on a daily basis. Listen, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to save the homeland. And it's going to take a little more work, but we're going to do it. I promise.
Thank you, Hratch, for that. Hratch, let's rewind to yesterday. I had taken a brief pause from the government building number 3. Just sort of, I had to go meet a friend for 5 minutes. And then I come back, and the first thing I see is you being marched to the police truck to be, I don't know how you were handled, but I saw some people being essentially thrown into the truck with like all 4, limbs, they're, 4 people. And then right behind you was Levon Kocharyan. So it seems like you were arrested again. Can you tell us more about your arrest? And, was it also like a light, thing, like, for a 3-hour thing, and then you're set to go, or what are you facing this time?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of becoming a hobby, getting arrested by the police, and then, do the paperwork and then get released, and then, let's do it all over again type of thing, right? So, I do have some trumped up charges against me previously. I currently have a criminal case against me dating back to 2020. So that case is ongoing. It's in front of the courts.
What was that about?
That was for a Facebook post where I said, all traitors must die. So they took that as I was referring to the guy occupying the PM's chair, I guess.
I don't know.
If the shoe fits, yeah,
So
exactly.
they consider themselves traitors.
I said, but that,
By the way, let's not go too much into that.
Yeah,
I don't want to be interfering in legal cases.
yeah, no, we won't go there. So that's what it is. It's for a Facebook post that I've been charged criminally, and it's kind of funny. So we'll leave that there. Next court case, the court date is June 8th. So yesterday, we circled around after the first round of kind of, shoving match with the police. We continued to march around the city, and then we kind of snuck back towards the government building number 3. And, this time around, there was even a larger force of police around, thousands, really. Speaking to the previous chief of police, I was told there was 7,000 police officers on duty yesterday around Yerevan. That's the most the government can put out at once.
How
because
many again?
7,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so Armenia altogether in its police force has 17,000 employees. That includes like the cleaners and the clerks and so on and so forth. So I think the number for actual police is 12,000 and change for all of Armenia. And at any given time, they can put out 5,000 to 7,000. So I was told by the previous chief of police that yesterday they had the max out. They had 7,000 police officers out. Now,
every single person they have.
Yeah, pretty much. So, you know, considering, you know, they have to give vacations, people have, you know, downtime, whatever, I guess that's the max they could put out. So, you know, what happened, our number was not big. We didn't have a huge number of people yesterday. There was only maybe, I don't know, this is my estimate, maybe 1,500 people, give or take, when we marched toward the government building there. So, you know, pushing and shoving. I was standing right behind Ishkan Saratelian, and I saw, you know, the police start beating on Keram Manugyan pretty bad. So Ishkan tried to intervene. They threw Ishkan to the ground. Now remember, these guys are MPs and they have diplomatic immunity, so, or governmental immunity, whatever you call it. So, you know, they can't be touched. But of course, this is Armenia. So, and then Ishkan was thrown to the ground, and this is all on video. So we helped him up. Ishkan's brother was with me too. And then, you know, this huge black beret guy basically, you know, hit Ishkan in his chest, and Ishkan fell again. So we started pushing and shoving with the police, you know, nothing really too harsh. Next thing I know, I had 2 knees to my kidneys from my back, and obviously that weakens anybody who's had who's been hit in the kidneys would know that. And then somebody punched my left ribs, and then basically I was taken down by 3 or 4 guys, I'm not sure. And then 2 guys grabbed my arms and basically almost broke my arms. And in that melee, I also lost my wedding ring. So yeah, I was taken down, and I was dragged to the police truck. Interestingly, while being taken to the police truck, my lawyer was walking towards me, and he saw what was happening, and he started yelling at the police, saying, you know, why are you using excessive force? And as soon as he said that, police basically almost broke my arms. They even made it worse and threw me to the ground and then threw me into the truck. So, so yeah, we're seeing a lot of police brutality. What I'm being told from people within the ranks is that, you know, in 2018, when the current government was doing their thing, you know, Serge Sarkisyan's government at the time didn't even use 25% of the force that's being used right now. So 60 of us were arrested at the same time. No, 60 of us were sent to the one precinct. I think 119 people were arrested at the same time. So we ended up at the Erepuni precinct. There was 60 of us, and all of us have been charged criminally with hooliganism. I don't know how they're going to be able to prove that in court, because you can clearly see what's happening on video. But we've all been criminally charged now, and in the next couple of days, we'll be notified, and we have to go meet with the investigators, give evidence.
Just 1 second, sorry. I will... well, I'm going to go on mute just 1 more second. We need to coordinate with another guest.
I'm here with Hratch Jabrayan, and we're discussing the police brutality, the tactics they're using, how much they're mobilizing, and yeah, I mean, because they need to implement what they've promised Azerbaijan. I think this is quite clear to us. I think it's clear to most listeners that you know, then they've said they're willing to concede Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan, and yeah, it's going to take a lot of force to attempt to implement that, and that's what we're fighting every day. Did you want to continue, or?
I think we covered everything, you know, yeah. Unless there are specific things you want me to touch on. I think we kind of covered it. So the bottom line is we are living in a police state right now because, you know, he needs to protect, Pashinyan needs to protect his power, his government's power, until he completes the task at hand, which is, you know, giving away Artsakh, giving away certain parts of Armenia, completing what he has been assigned by his handlers. That's what we're looking at right
Any questions?
Katya, did you have a question?
I'm very curious about the hooliganism charge. I mean, is this a new thing in Armenia? Has this always been used? Is it being used more generously these days? How does the, because you've been here a while, maybe you can speak on that.
Yeah, definitely being used, more liberally and generously now for sure, because for hooliganism, you have to be able to show and prove that there was something that was done to cause serious harm or damage to an environment or a certain amount of people. But right now, what they're doing is this is a way of oppressing people. They're trying to oppress people in the sense that, if they charge you criminally, then you're going to think twice about showing up the next day. And your neighbor who was sitting on the fence is going to say, oh, wait a minute, my neighbor just got charged, so I'm not going to go. Of course, what they don't realize is, the way we're wired is, you charge us criminally today, we'll come back stronger tomorrow. You want to charge us again, we'll come back. If you want to throw us in jail, our brothers will show up. You want to throw our brothers in jail, our neighbors will show up. That's how we are wired. So, this is a way of oppressing the people. Of course, they can't do that. They might be able to achieve it with some people, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, these are just false charges, trumped up charges. They're trying to scare people. It's not going to work. We'll respond to it.
Okay, any questions from listeners?
Speaking of, trumped up charges, I think we can introduce our next guest who just arrived. Hobi, do you want to can we use your phone or? Okay, we can use mine. I just wanted to do some tweets, but it's fine. So welcome, Anahit. We have Anahit Adamyan here now with us. Her husband, Avetik Chalabyan, is today a political prisoner. I think we can say that quite clearly. And she's here to talk about his case, what's going on, and this movement. So perhaps I think Anahit can do a better explanation than I can about what brings her here today.
Hello, everyone. I'm not sure everyone knows about Avetik. Maybe I will introduce him, tell about him in a couple of words. Avetik, before being actively involved in politics, he used to be a senior partner at McKinsey & Company. And he left his career, a 20-year career at McKinsey, to move to Armenia, and where he was already involved in a number of projects. Some of them in defense, some of them in education. So he was actively doing a lot of useful and very, focused work on strengthening Armenia. But at some point, I think he got this disappointment that whatever he does, it has little effect compared to what the current government is doing with exactly the opposite goal. So he moved into active politics, and very active politics since April. And I think that got attention. And Avetik is one of the people who has never been in politics before, who doesn't have any strings attached from past political careers. No one can qualify him as like one of the priors or the next or the Nachkin or all these labels. So he, in that sense, he's one of the new figures in the political sphere. On the other hand, is a very patriotic person, is very competent, very deep, very good understanding of the political scene, and knows very well the history of Armenia, the history of the region, and history of the conflicts. So I think the emergence of such person was viewed as probably a threat to the current regime. And there was a fabricated case involving a recording where his voice is heard for like a few seconds, but the rest of the recordings is a discussion of some monetary, what do you call it? So basically bringing people to protest by paying them. And he's not having that conversation about money. He's just talking about having values and why you should be part of the protest because it's important, because it's like it's for Armenia. So now totally fabricated charge. After which our house was searched. He was brought to police without any papers. Then he was arrested. Then a judge made a decision to arrest him for 2 months without any, a reason to keep, a person like that who was peacefully doing his work, continuing doing his work, but never was charged with anything at police. I mean, he had never been charged with any misbehavior before, and and he was given the maximum sentence for this trial period, like 2 months imprisonment arrest at this point. Today we had an appeal, a court appeal to appeal that the arrest is too strict a measure for this case, for him specifically, and he has been his behavior. There's an Armenian word called Hratch Jabrayan, basically a legal document which says that we guarantee that the person will abide the law and will not have any unlawful behavior or any threat to the society. So basically, as such, Hratch Jabrayan were issued by members of parliament, 5 members of parliament, and also a vocal and social support were issued by all the total leadership of Artsakh, and the members of parliament, the Sarkazan from Artsakh. So basically, Artsakh United stood by Avetik and told that he's going to be, he's a good citizen, he's a supporter of Artsakh, and we vote for him to be set free. Also, on the other hand, everyone from business and social and leadership in Armenia and outside, like community of whoever was has worked with Avetik, everyone also we have a group of people of 85 influential people also appealed to set Avetik free. So basically, you could say that everyone who has any weight in the business or social sphere in Armenia and outside it has voted for Avetik. But that was not enough. He still, today the judge made a decision that he still needs to be, kept arrested. So no, not at all actually. Avetik, I talked to him on the phone after the trial, and he told me, if this would be happening in Europe, I would be set free because our defense was very strong. We proved that there is no basis for keeping me arrested. There is basically no explanation, no basis, and no legal basis for this proceeding, for keeping me in the arrest. Besides the fact that there is no proof that I actually did this, any of this, the thing that's incriminated to me. And if I was in Europe, and saying that our attorneys, defense was making the speech, making the arguments, and the accusing party is just saying a few words and actually not even protesting me. And the judge is asking him, do you want to say something more to the how they call them, the prosecutor? Do you have anything to say more? I said, no, I don't. But then maybe you should say something more. I said, no, I don't have anything. Or maybe we will continue tomorrow and you can come and say something more. So basically, we continued the trial to today, and that was from yesterday to today, hoping and trying. So and at the end of today, there was the same story. Our side was, very vocal, very well argumented, very well prepared. The other side was not. And the judge at the end said, no, we don't change anything. Everything stays arrested. So it's no explanation.
By the way, the judge is Armen Danielyan, a very famous pocket judge for the Nikol Pashinyan regime. And, I want to take a slight diversion. I'm sorry, Anahit, but we have a criminal case for treason where 2 of the people who, or at least let's say the chief person. Oh my God, the general who led the war. Okay. So Jalal Harutsunyan is one of the accused. He is in a position where he can interfere with his case. He can order the records to be burned. He can order his subordinates not to testify. So here's a criminal case where one of the chief accused is running free with not being arrested.
Still in the ministry.
And he still has a job where he can't interfere with the case. Whereas, simple case where they have all the evidence, where they have it's a minor case. And by the way, the clause by which Avetik Chalabyan was arrested will expire on July 1st. So by the time he gets out of his pre-trial detention, the clause will no longer be valid, and he cannot be tried on that clause. He cannot be jailed on that clause, or at least as things stand today. So here they have keeping Avetik in jail, but we have one of the chief, if you go by the accusation, chief criminals, or accused criminals, and chief people responsible for our losses in 2020, potentially, running around free and being able to potentially manipulate evidence.
Exactly, and this is something we've talked about on the podcast with Yerevan and Naira Melikian. If you guys, some of you may have heard that episode. We have it on the YouTube channel for Grung. But basically, they're alleging that there was treason all the way to the top. So imagine someone who stands accused of treason is still in a position where he can fire people and he can interfere, whereas Avetik is not in any kind of position like that, or not accused of anything remotely close to what we're talking about in that case.
He has a guarantee from 5 parliamentarians. He has multiple businesses that put down money to provide a letter of guarantee for him, and this apparently is not enough for this crime that's supposed to expire on July 1st.
I wanted to make a comment about this expiry, because our attorneys were making that same argument that this clause is going to expire on July 1st, and the prosecutor said, "Well, I heard rumors that it might not expire." So basically, and Avetik is the first person who is tried on this clause, but apparently there are 2 more people they are trying to incriminate it to, and there is I don't know if it's real, but this clause was the reason it's expiring because it was found against it that it contradicts the constitution. So basically, people might go as far as changing the law just to keep people in this. I hope this doesn't happen, because I really want my husband to come home. But this is as far as people can go, for political cases.
Well, and we should mention too that there is an ongoing. There's a committee to change the constitution right now. It's just one of these things where in normal times, or in a normal situation, this should be in the news. There should be transparency. We should know what the heck is going on there. But everything is done in secrecy with total obfuscation of what's going on and unqualified people doing it. So, Anahit, perhaps you could talk a little bit about what Avetik was working on, what he was speaking about before his arrest. We had him on Grung, and he was talking very forcefully, obviously, against the government. But perhaps you can talk a little bit about what he was, what brought him into the movement, into politics, and yeah.
In one of his recent interviews, actually, he is doing interviews from the imprisonment. They're sending the journalists are sending questions, he's sending answers. But pretty much, what he's saying that this is not really a political movement. It is a movement to stay Armenian, to preserve the Armenia, preserve Artsakh, and Artsakh is the key for him. As is the most important. Part of his recent work is security. His identity, his personal identity, is so much tied to Armenia and its future. So he paints personally of all the things that are happening and all the treasonous things that are happening. And I think it's a key goal for him that Armenia and Artsakh are safe, and Artsakh is not made part of Azerbaijan, which is, I think, the agenda of the current government at the moment. So I think it's forceful and very targeted agenda for that protection of Artsakh is the key reason, and also the thing that he might, as a person, be an influential, a person of influence for people in the French part today.
Can I say something?
Yeah, this is Hratch Jabrayan, and we're also speaking to Anahit Adamyan, whose husband Avetik Chalabyan is a political prisoner today. So just for those of you who've just joined.
Yeah, so I just want to throw my spin on Avetik's case because this is very, very clear to me as to why Avetik was jailed. It's very simple. The current government is scared of intellectuals. Intellectual leaders who have the capability to take a leadership role. And Avetik is one of the few faces in Armenia. For those of you who live in Armenia, you know Avetik Chalabyan. But for those of you who don't, 90% of the Spirkahais don't know Avetik. So Avetik is a leading figure, not in politics, but just a simple figure in Armenia who is well respected by all political parties, who is very well liked by the general population because of his neutral stance, because of his leadership qualities, because of his, whatever, education, whatever you want to call it. So I think the biggest issue, and I throw this out as an observer in politics, my mind is a business mind. I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician, but it's very, very clear to me. There was a chance that Avetik's name could be put forth as a potential prime minister candidate by all parties for the future of Armenia. And that would be accepted by the majority of the people who are, one, pro this movement, and two, independent of this movement. And that scares the current regime. So if we look at people like this, those are the people being oppressed, thrown in jail on trumped up charges, or being persecuted. Another person just recently we found out is Artsakh, right? He's now being criminally persecuted. It's a joke on the exact same thing that Avetik has been charged with. Of course, Artsakh is a member of parliament, so he does have, immunity, but they're trying to take that away from him. I know this because my lawyer is also Artsakh's lawyer, so we have some.
Just like in Turkey, they're removing parliamentary immunity of opposition politicians.
So it sounds like if you want to throw, somebody in jail in Armenia, you start considering them for prime minister.
For state treason. The case with which Jalal Hartunian, I believe, is being tried right now. Yes.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, listen, we're seeing the same thing now being done against Artsakh, because Artsakh is a very well-respected politician, a scholar, very well liked by a lot of people, even though he's a member of the ARF. He's very low-key, very well liked by everybody, and he has potential. So, if this movement does not achieve what it's doing, I'm going to throw this name out. You're going to see Artsakh in jail. You're going to see Ishkan in jail. You're going to see me in jail. And, and it's going to be a long process. So it's very, very important that we succeed and we ensure that these BS trumped up charges are thrown out. And we have guys like Avetik back out serving the community and the country in Artsakh, which they were doing. So this is my take on it. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but being involved in this movement and being part of this process, it is very, very clear to me.
Yeah, if I can just add on to that, Allison. This is a pattern. This is a classic dictator playbook where you get rid of the intellectuals, the sort of middle of the road opposition that, everyone could get behind, because you want, if you're not loved, which I would say this regime is not loved. There's no one who's willing to actually go down and counter protest on behalf of Nikol Pashinyan. No way. But what they need to do is convince the populace to just stay apathetic and to point and say, oh, whoever comes after me is going to be, either not a known quantity or maybe worse for you. So that's what they're working on now. And that's why they're trying to eliminate anyone who has the respect of the general population. Because if they do that quick enough, then, people don't even know their names, maybe don't know what they're about. And they see what Pashinyan wants them to see, which is black and white. That's what he's always harping on, and the division that he promotes. So, if you guys want to think of any questions, Aspat had a question. Sure.
Are you visiting Avetik regularly? Is he being treated well in prison?
Well, he is being treated well in prison. There was actually a short TV documentary shown last week, and he became a star because everyone watched it. But no, it's this prison, this particular place was built after the prison reform, so it is relatively normal. If you put that like in quotation marks, yeah, normal place. And as about seeing him, we only can see like him twice a month. The family visits are limited to twice a month. You can see his the attorney, I mean lawyer, as often as he wants to, but we can only visit him. I've seen him once. I've seen him once last week. He was okay. He was taking things philosophically. Advised me to take them as philosophically as well. And he went into politics with open eyes. He was understanding what he's doing and what he's getting into. So he's strong.
So, let me ask another question and get your opinion. My sense is that if in the past something like this happened, a prominent opposition politician was arrested, the entire international community would be like screaming at the top of their lungs about this incident. Have you been contacted by any outside human rights defenders or even Armenian human rights defenders? What has been the reaction so far? Especially, I'm interested in international, but also Armenian.
Well, we had zero reaction and zero interest from any international bodies so far. The only ones that we had a reaction from was Armen Danielyan, the former ombudsman, and he wrote on Facebook that his opinion that this is a political trial and that Avetik has to be released. But we have sent letters to several organizations. And we have a group that sort of works with it. We have lawyers, we have some other specialists together. But there was no response, and we are going to be appealing to them again because at least we want the formal process to start. I'm a firm believer that you should, do the bureaucratic part because you can always, the paper never gets lost. If you if you send it, you can always refer to it later. So, but I don't have any expectations there. We are realistic about it.
Could you tell us who you're appealing to? And
yes, we've sent letters to Amnesty International, to European EU delegation, and I think one more organization. I can't remember that out of my mind now, but we are going to apply to the. We are going to try the human rights and also the Armenian human rights defender, but no response. And basically, we are going to apply to the European human rights, but they're sort of working on the paperwork for that.
I just want to note something about jail. Yesterday, we had on two guests from the ARF youth here in Yerevan, and they spoke about the case against 5 of their fellow members who are actually veterans of this war, veterans of the 2016 war, and also participated in all the civic movements from Electric Yerevan to, to the protests of 2018, and are now being held in jail, like Avetik, like Mika Badalian, who has a Telegram channel. So you have all sorts of people who, they just have different appeals and are kind of the engine of this movement, from the youth to the really, high-profile people like Avetik. And one thing they mentioned was that actually they were bringing books to them, and the prison guards were questioning, or no, somebody was saying, was it you who said you were writing? Somebody said they were writing in jail. They had a, paper and pen, and the guards were just totally weirded out, and they said, what are you writing? Just to give an idea of the mood. If you guys have questions, this is a great chance to ask both about, kind of the day-to-day movement, its goals, and also, about political repression against intellectual leaders of this movement.
Okay, any questions from listeners? Allison, I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay. Anything you want to...
Yeah, we talked about, Hratch, this is for you. I know you mentioned you received some injuries yourself. Did you talk about that? And also, I know that parliamentarian Artur Ghazinian got a broken rib yesterday. I witnessed the police deliberately targeting MPs who are well known to everyone, who have immunity. So, do you think this is just an accident that they're trying to sort of there's apparently punching out the MP? It's basically like Fight Club style.
Taekwondo.
Basically, it's like I don't know if by the time we're done, Artur Ghazinian seems to be well built, but I'm really worried about Armen Danielyan. I don't know if he'll be able to handle So anyway, jokes aside, what do you think? Is it just my perception, or is there something to it that this is deliberate?
So there are no accidents in Armenia. Everything is planned and implemented by the foreign-funded government, and they're trying to obviously target the leaders of this movement as much as possible. Ironically enough, so yesterday when I got arrested, I got detained, taken to the police station. So they had kicked my kidneys and I bruised ribs, scratches on my back. One of our guys broke his foot, so I was in so much pain. So I ended up going to the washroom, and I apologize for saying this at the police station. And, when I urinated, there was blood in my urine. And I called the police and I said, listen, I'm not feeling well. So they called an ambulance. I got checked out. Today I went to the hospital. I had x-rays done. And, I did have some blood in my kidneys, but that's only because I have kidney stones and those moved and causing pain. But I do have bruised ribs and several scratches and marks on my back. And ironically enough, while I was detained yesterday, both Ghazinian and Armen Danielyan visited me because they're both friends of mine. And while I was there, we actually had the same doctors check out Ghazinian and myself. And then he had to go to the hospital. And it's true that he does have cracked ribs because the police used brute force on him. Danielyan had a big scar on his neck because they grabbed him from his neck. He was proudly showing it to all the police officers in the precinct there. But, it's no joke. Listen, they're targeting these guys because, Ishkhan and Keram and Armen Danielyan and Ghazinian, Haigmamidjanian, some of these other guys. Listen, these are smart guys. These guys are not stupid guys. They are well-versed. They are prepared. They can take this movement to the next level. And other names too. I'm not mentioning everybody right now, obviously off the top of my head. But, and these guys are being targeted intentionally. Of course, if they go over the line, then obviously we will have some international response to it because they are members of parliament and they're not supposed to be beat up. So they're kind of limits. Yes, go ahead.
Hratch, on the other side, it seems like they are totally hands-off with the ladies, right?
No. Did you see they yanked a young woman by her hair yesterday? I mean, it was incredible.
Oh, I did not.
Oh,
who was that?
No, I don't know who it was. Somebody. It wasn't some high-profile person or an MP. But she was, first they pushed her with force and then yanked her by her hair. It's incredible. There was a video of a little girl crying because some police officer was, God, I don't even know what he said to her. He was calling her a traitor or something. This little kid. It's totally bizarre. I don't know. It's weird. It's like
Alison, I meant to say the parliamentarians. Now, I don't mean to minimize the suffering that you're describing.
Yeah.
We'll stay on that. But what about the parliamentarians?
We've seen on at least one occasion Aspram Gurbayan was handled roughly by police. Aspram is like my daughter. Her dad was a good friend of mine, so we chat a lot, we talk a lot, and she was in tears that day. She came and she was crying, and she had been handled very roughly by the police. Anna Grigoryan is another one of the MPs who was handled roughly, at least on one occasion I can recall, where she had some bruises. Nothing like being hit or punched or whatever, but not the way we handle Armenian ladies. That's not how we treat our ladies in Armenia, or that's not how we're supposed to treat our ladies anywhere in the world for that matter. So we have seen that, but if we were going to compare it to what's happening with some of these guys, obviously they're targeting Ishkhan and some of those guys more. I mean, you guys saw what they did to Artsakh a couple of weeks ago. This guy's an MP. How many police officers were pushing and shoving him, and they arrested him and threw him in a police car until eventually they released him because he's a member of parliament. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen that video, but it was incredible how they beat him. Right.
And Ishkhan, I saw his shirt today. I mean, it's like ripped open. It's really wild. Yeah. Sorry, Asbet. Did there something you wanted to add or follow up?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from listeners? Going one, twice.
Anahit, I wanted to ask you, if I may. I mean, one of the things that I know is very near and dear to Avetik's heart was the cause of the families we featured on Grung, who are fighting in court for justice for what occurred during the war. And if I remember correctly, when he spoke to us, he was talking quite bluntly about, that they believe that, there's all the evidence to pursue high treason, and he was out front and center with the families. Can you tell me a bit about his, or maybe both of your relations to the families, how you guys got involved with them, and why this cause is so important and such a critical part of this movement?
It is one of the central parts of the movement, I think, and also, Avetik was part of the Hamahmbu movement, the unity movement, if you translate it. And a main part of that is the 5,165 party. One of the leaders of the party is Karin Tonoyan, who is the mother of Menua, yes, who died in war, and she is the leader of the parent group, if you say so. But it doesn't have to be that. I mean, just because of their parties, their connections. These people live among us. One of the parents there is my classmate. We studied at the university together. Her son died. He died in the war, and actually he was wounded. He came to Yerevan. He died in the hospital with the parents there, and he was one of the soldiers in that group, which they are. Would you believe? Yeah, the Tsor.
Yeah, he's one of the Tsor.
Yes, and our oldest kid, our daughter is 19, and her son is 20. I mean, it could have been my kid, if you had a boy. I mean, it's just very personal. It's people around us. We all should stand with them. Absolutely, we should go and protect their cause. And these parents are one of the strongest fighters of this movement. There's no politics in that part. This is absolutely cause for justice. So I think, if anything, this people should unite around at least this parent.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's something that trying to emphasize that, this is an Armenian cause. This is a cause about justice. It's, so many of the people that are trying to just, smear this movement will talk about this or that personality. I mean, the core the core that we're following is the parents. I mean, and these parents, what they will say is that they're fighting so that other people's children don't have to be serving under a traitorous regime. That, as we know from our interviews, I mean, they told these guys in the unit that Anahit mentioned that who was coming at them were 100% Armenians, when in fact they were Azerbaijanis, and these guys were almost all slaughtered, or in the case of Anahit's friend's son, badly wounded to the point where he passed away in a hospital in Yerevan. And you know, the superiors are still walking, not only free, but are holding their senior positions in the Ministry of Defense. And they're doing everything, this regime is doing everything they can to protect them, because at the end of the day, there's somebody at the top, and he is Nikol Pashinyan. Any questions? I guess if there's no questions, I mean, we can wrap up unless there's any, you know, closing things you want to say. Totally up to you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys listening.
I'm good. I really appreciate the time our guests took. Hratch, Anahit, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
And we'll be always reminding our audience about Avetik's case and all of the political prisoners.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, as a journalist, I know that, you know, we need to keep these things in the limelight. It's easy for them to brush these things aside when nobody's talking about them. So we need to just constantly be shining a light, even if, you know, whatever we're up against, we're going to just keep putting it out there, because that's what puts scrutiny, that makes it more difficult for them to just do this easily and keep things under wraps. So thank you guys all for joining, and please, if there was anything that struck you, tweet it, share it, and subscribe to Grung, and keep joining us.
Yep. And we'll talk to everyone very soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Have a good night. Take it easy.